Hello and welcome to News Express, exclusively brought to you by Business A.M, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. I am Chukunonso Modi. So we have interesting stories hitting the front page this week. Let's get right into it. Now the first one, the big story, household consumption drives Nigeria's GDP growth by 70%. Sub-headline, GDP expenditure shows 15% growth in real terms. And another sub-headline, Nigeria's in net import position at 20.8 trillion naira versus 18.9 trillion naira. Another headline, MTN, Globe, 9 Mobile, Airtel, and $27 billion SMS authentication revenues. Sub-headline, quest for more secure data service to drive 5% growth. Another sub-headline, over 1.7 trillion multi-factor authentication messages to be delivered globally in 2022. You should also look at company and business, enterprise, NGL bets, YOE interns. Definitely check out commodities and agriculture with palm oil windfall eludes Nigeria. Interesting one. Executive knowledge series, when two leaders collide, less fraud happens. Visionary voices as well, breathing new life into medical oxygen. Now let's bring in Philip Isakwa, the publisher Business A.M, to help us make sense of the headlines. Good morning, Philip.
Yeah, good morning, Onso. Lovely things are happening. The world of business and economy, so many things happening all over the world, particularly Nigeria.
Yes, definitely.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing too?
I'm great.
All right. Now let's start with the first story, which says household consumption drives Nigeria's GDP growth by 70%. Now, a detailed analysis of a report released by the National Bureau of Statistics has shown that household consumption is still the major demand driver of the 3.4% year-on-year real GDP growth recorded by Nigeria in 2021. Now, what drove this, Mr. Philip?
Yeah, absolutely. This is fascinating because when the GDP numbers are released, we just go to the headline numbers. So we are positive or we are negative, and then and that's all that happens. But we needed to go. Dig down, dig into the numbers and to see what exactly has been going on, with regards to the economic performance. But it's obvious anyway, because we talk about a country that is consumption driven, high on consumption, low on production, and that's the reason why we have a lot of problems in different aspects of the economy. Yeah. We're a high consuming country. It shows also there when you see Nigeria in net import position at 20.8 trillion versus 18.9 trillion naira. And those are the numbers coming from the Bureau of Statistics, and it's interesting because we looked at the numbers and we saw that household consumption, which means what you and I and the rest of the population, consumes, is a major driver of the GDP growth we are seeing. Perhaps you want to look at, you want to compare that to production and say, why is this GDP not driven by production? You find that you end up looking at the contrast between importation and export, and you'll find that we're importing more, and you'll find that with this consumption pattern, it's likely, it's obvious that a lot of the things that we're consuming probably come from outside the country, and that's why production isn't registering so much. We talk about this particular aspect of it driving GDP growth by as much as 70%. That's huge. That's really massive. And managers of the economy, these are the things that they should be looking at. When the big numbers are mentioned, or the macro numbers are mentioned, macro in the sense that GDP has grown by 3.4% or so, and everybody is happy. Managers of the economy will go back and say, let's dig into this. Why is production so poor? consumption so high, a highly productive economy, it will mean an economy that is producing much more than it is consuming and having surplus, to send outside the country and export to earn foreign exchange. But this is not the case. Consumption is still driving GDP. It's driving it so much that it's as high as 70%. It's not just so we have household consumption, and then we have government consumption, which is I think it's negative. I mean, if you read down the story, you find it is negative. But the key thing is that household consumption, and if import is still higher than export, it means that most of those consumption items are imported items that we are consuming and helping to build this GDP, to drive this GDP growth. And this isn't really something that managers of the economy should be happy about. They should be thinking of ways, to reverse the situation.
Yes, they definitely should be thinking of ways to reverse, because if you're having more of imports than exports, it's definitely a problem. Now, like you said, the declined, as much as the thing came up, we have seen declines as well. Within this group, there's the non-profit institution serving household contributing to broad GDP decline, and then a host of others as well. And analysts have inferred that the tax reforms introduced by the Finance Act 2020 contributed in part to the decline, while also not ruling out the base effect in 2020 when fiscal stimulus provided income buffers to households. Do you agree to this, Mr. Philip?
Yes, those are two items that you can look at and say, okay, these two items probably influenced what has happened. From first of all, you had a tax situation reducing, bringing some negative effect in terms of the consumption that we're talking about. But also you look at on the other end, the what did you call that one? The second one, if I'm not mistaken now. So the second item. So those two items are actually very serious when you look at what has happened so far. So the tax that was introduced, what you call, there was a VAT tax. There was also another tax, in terms of sugar or something. There was one tax that was specifically to reduce sugar consumption. And which effect you have generally transferred, of course, by manufacturers, to consumers in terms of prices. So that has a way of curbing the excessive way that individuals consume items. Definitely not everybody, but you have a few people, a good enough number to bring it to negative. So that's one aspect of it. So analysts are right when they say so those two items did have an effect, on the GDP numbers that came out last week.
Okay. Now, speaking of the external sector, because this also came up, and it said that it was in the net import position at the end of the year, with nominal imports valued at 20.8 trillion naira, which is against exports at 18.9 trillion naira. Now, analysts are of the opinion that this net import position reflects pent-up orders following the disruption to global supply chains in 2022, Mr. Philip.
Yes, pent-up orders in terms. So 2020 you had a general lull, global lull in economic activities. Supply chains were completely down. Seriously, in such a way that you found negatives. The IMF had to come to the rescue of low-income countries. When they allowed their SDR to shed some money. To shore up balance of payments of many countries. But the key thing is that once we began to come out of that situation, the COVID, the lockdown situation began to ease off, and so many economies began to hiccup. Now, what what happened? So in production, you have high productive countries will go straight to production, into the production mode. But for Nigeria as an import dependent country, you will have import spike. Because you have some kind of businesses that have been on a lull for some time. Dive in. Because things are beginning to ease off. And all the book orders that have been made in terms of importation will now begin will be opened. For imports to come in, or for them to effect their orders that they've been trying to make. And factories had to open anyway. Manufacturers had to go back to business. And all the traders, of course, Okeare and the rest of them, Onitsha and Ibadan and whatever those places, Kano, that are used to importing all sorts of things for sale, will generally open the what's it called, the rush to the bank to open letters of credit and so on to report all sorts of things. So that's why you had that spike. That's what the analysts were talking about, meant when they said that they had a bounce, effect as a result of the easing, So it was the easing of the lockdown, the easing of supply chain situation, the easing of the COVID restrictions that had kept economies and kept businesses on a low scale. Haven't been open. Naturally, you find that businesses and all sorts of businesses, including manufacturers and traders, will be back on the importation spree. So that's exactly what they were talking about, and of course it showed in terms of nominal imports valued at 20.8 trillion naira against exports of 18.9 trillion naira. Mind you, 18.9 trillion naira will likely be oil exports and so on. Oil and gas exports, which isn't a big part of the economy. When you talk about the how an economy should be balanced to ensure that other things are making serious contribution. So the exports will be generally oil and gas, and then maybe a few non-export items that we send out of the country. But it's showing that that spike had a bounce on what was imported. What was imported at 20.8 trillion naira.
Yes, true. But speaking of importation, it's sad how we keep on importing. I mean, this issue is already overflowed because we keep on repeating this, how we're importing, and the number of things we're importing is even more than what we're exporting. No wonder the economy is suffering, because we're bringing so much inside and you're not even getting as much as out, then definitely there will be a problem somewhere.
Absolutely. Again, we bring it down to managers of the economy. I mean, we've talked about focus. We've talked about focus on so many times. We'd say, okay, what are they really focusing on? What are they focusing on? Are they focusing on the real things, that they need to focus on, with regards to, again, there are many analysts who will tell you that the economy needs a serious reset, reset in the sense that many times they've talked about whether how to reduce importation, how to what's it called, get lots of things produced locally, but it's a structural problem, and then that structural problem needs to be addressed, and I don't think they have really addressed it the way it should, because there are so many things to generate export for the country. I mean, in terms of what can be produced internally for export purposes, but you haven't created. I mean, if you don't create the right environment for that to happen, it's often difficult, And then if you don't have a purpose, if purpose is not quite clear, then it's very, very difficult. If you read the story on palm oil or oil palm that you have there, I mean, so many things are happening, in that area that we haven't taken advantage of for decades, and for a very long time, and that's not really healthy.
Yes, it's not at all. But then Nigeria, there's just a lot going on. I mean, if we start this, we will never finish it. So let's go to the next story, which says MTN, Glo, 9 Mobile, Airtel in on $27 billion SMS authentication revenues. Now, according to a new study by Juniper Research, it is estimated that mobile network operators are in line to reap $27 billion from the termination of SMS messages related to multi-factor authentication, which is a 5% increase from the $25 billion generated in 2021. Now, this is huge, Mr. Philip. What exactly will drive this 5% growth?
This is really huge, and then what we have tried to do is to try to link up the local. I mean, not local really, but the mobile phone companies that we have in the country: MTN, Glo, 9 Mobile, Airtel, and the rest of them who are in on this $27 billion SMS authentication revenues that. Yes. That has been projected. It's a projection, but the point is that there's increasing demand, for authentication, and especially when people. Okay, typical example is when you are asked, you want to be sure who is sending a message or where the message is coming from, and then you want to. All of this is based on the fact that people want related to cybersecurity, people wanting more security, and because they want more security, there's been a lot of systems put in place, or what I mean, this technology in the technology space, some things have been put in place that allows for this authentication to take place, and it's not free. That's what they're saying. It's not free, So because it's not free, money is generated or revenue is generated from this, for instance, in 2022 alone, they're saying they're going to have 1.7 trillion multi-factor authentication messages to be delivered globally, and so we're talking about, we're not talking about the normal SMS messages now that we all send, but these are specific ones that are talking about authenticating messages, that come in, and they are not going to be free, So at 1.7 trillion, so two ways you can find that happening for Nigeria. Domestically, you probably will have it, you and I, wanting authentication, but more and more you're going to find that this is linked globally, because internationally messages are going to come in, and people are going to be requiring authentication, and businesses especially, are very, very bullish on authentication, so you're going to have that happening, from between Nigeria and the rest of the world. And when that begins to happen, or when that happens, MTN and the rest of them, Globe, 9 Mobile, Airtel, are going to benefit, so they're going to have a share of this. We don't know exactly how much they're going to how much they're going to have, but they will surely reap some benefit from it. And this is what this story is about. It's talking about it's good news for them, that they are going to have a share of this huge amount of money, that is going to float around.
Yes, definitely. So, like you said, we definitely have a lot to reap from this global boom. I mean, not just Nigeria, but then Africa at large. But now the issue is, are we going to seize this opportunity, leverage on it? Because as much as we're saying, this is huge, this is big, is a whole lot of things, and we watch so much that's going to happen, so much opportunities to seize. But are we going to tap into it?
I mean, you expect the MTN, the Glo, the 9 Mobile, and the Airtel people of this world to to be looking at this and finding ways to benefit from it. Obviously, it's business. It's business. It's not something in the governance or political arena where people don't care. You know, businesses always look for opportunities, and so they will definitely be looking at how they can benefit from this. The research is when we say 1.7 trillion multi-factor authentication messages to be delivered, you know that this represents 60% of total SMS business messaging traffic. You know, that's 60% of total SMS business messaging traffic. So definitely some will come to them naturally, you know. But the research did point out that for mobile operators to seize on this opportunity, they would need to develop machine learning algorithms, you know, that automate the monitoring of the vast amount of traffic, you know, to efficiently identify messages that can be charged at a premium, you know. So it's not just something that will happen naturally. So you're right, Nonso, that will they take advantage of what this opportunity is offering. You know, the point is that there's money to be made. You know, I believe that they can't be completely satisfied with what they're getting at the moment. You know, from either voice or the data messaging. You know, they will want to look at new opportunities, and this represents a new opportunity for them to tap into. And I believe that as businesses, they will have definitely have a table, you know, on this at the moment.
Yes, definitely they should have a table on it at the moment. I mean, the researcher urged mobile operators to capitalize the growth in demand for multi-factor authentication, so they should definitely be having things under control. Yes,
absolutely.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Philip. We'll see how the stories develop this week.
Yeah, thank you, Nonso. Have a great week.
You too. Now, that was Philip Isakwa, the publisher, Business A.M, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. Don't forget, you can also listen in again on the News Express podcast at www.africabusinessradio.com. That's all for now. Stay tuned for more.